Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean Thomas, and welcome to my channel. If this is the first time viewing, please make sure you leave a comment. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to hear more content like this. Greatly appreciate it. So today I want to do a video that's still in line with a lot of what I've talked about before. I want to really dig into this concept of the Jewish cabal, and I'm personally going to be taking a position of trying to debunk it. I will be playing devil's advocate where fair. But I'm going to be grounding everything in evidence, not speculation. Okay. Now I know that this is a really broad topic that's kind of hard to address all in one video. People kind of spend their entire lives making content like this. Entire channels dedicated to uncovering the global Jewish Kabbalistic state. But just right off the bat, for most of you probably don't know that there's actually 6 different types of Jews. You've got Orthodox for one, you have secular, and then there's a bunch of weird ones in the middle that no one even seems to really know about. The only way I heard about it is through my church. But let's start at the beginning. The idea of a secretive Jewish or religious Jew cabal plotting a new world order is a recycled anti-Semitic trope with zero credible evidence. It's essentially a modern twist on the forged 1903 Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a Russian secret police fabrication blaming Jews for world domination. This myth has fueled atrocities from Nazi propaganda to modern extremism, portraying Jews as puppet masters controlling governments, media, and finance to erode national sovereignty. In reality, it's debunked by basic scrutiny. Jews are 0.2% of the global population, about 15 million, diverse in views and often victims of real cabals, authoritarian regimes, not including Nazi Germany and Islam in general. No unified cabal exists. Claims rely on cherry-picked examples, for example, like Jewish billionaire George Soros, while ignoring non-Jewish power players like the Koch brothers and Saudi royals. Pragmatically, this theory thrives in economic anxiety or geopolitical chaos, which we are in, to be fair. So the soil is ripe to accept these seeds. Scapegoating minorities for systemic issues like inequality or globalization is common during this time. Now, on the other side, some see patterns in pro-Israel lobbying, like AIPAC, but that's overt advocacy, not conspiracy, similar to the NRA or a big oil influence. If a cabal did run everything, why do Jews face rising hate crimes, and why has Israel lost UN votes routinely? Scenario. Imagine blaming a Christian cabal for US wars. It's reductive and ignores real politique drivers like oil or alliances. The commentators like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Nick Fuentes amplify anti-Zionism, which is defined as opposition to Israel's existence as a Jewish state, by blending legitimate policy critiques with anti-Semitic dog whistles. So as it is with everything, there's legitimate criticism mixed in with stuff that's meant to kind of tug at the deeper ideological gravitational nodes, for lack of opinion, the actual core worldview of people who are anti-Semitic, right? And they do this by blending, I already read that. And it blends legitimate policy critiques with anti-Semitic dog whistles, and it often frames Israel as a manipulative force draining America. But the shifts seem opportunistic, tied to audience building and right-wing echo chambers. So let's talk about Nick Fuentes and the Groypers, I should say. Fuentes openly admires Israel's ethno-state model, while hypocritically attacking Jewish interests for controlling America. Okay, that doesn't really check out. Calling for taking back power from Jews and ranting that Jews are running society, while women and blacks should be subjugated. His Groypers followers echo this, pushing Holocaust minimization and white supremacist memes. Now, you could say that this isn't principled anti-Zionism, it's envy masked as critique, using Israel as a foil for his own racist vision. Pragmatically, what this is doing is it's radicalizing the youth, but alienates mainstream conservatives, as seen in GOP infighting. There's a devil's advocate to be played here, which is that Fuentes claims that everything he says is irony for small audiences. But to counterpoint, repeating Hitler was cool isn't satire, it's recruitment. And in the Piers Morgan interview, I already mentioned this, he said that he actually just genuinely believes Hitler is cool. And my question to the audience is, many of you have commented saying, well, are you going to actually critique the argument? And it's like, well, what Hitler did was evil. It's self-evident in the fact that he unjustly killed people for who they were and not for what they did. Okay, justice is doled out exclusively, true justice is doled out exclusively on the actions that have been committed by individual people or groups of people that have been cohorted into conspiracy. Okay, but we know that genocide, ethnic cleansing is evil when it actually does happen, not when it's falsely claimed to have been happening. Okay, so I don't want to get into an epistemological or philosophical debate about why Hitler was evil. I'm going to accept it as a given that what Hitler did was evil, okay? Yes, he was a vegetarian and he painted art, but you can acknowledge those aspects about him without, saying he was cool. Because he wasn't cool. Neither was Stalin, just for the record. Okay? Moving on to Tucker Carlson. Okay? He used to praise Israel as independent, but he pivoted in 2025 to calling Christian Zionism a heresy and a brain virus, suggesting U.S. support enables genocide, okay? And platforming Fuentes while questioning Sharia's badness, okay? He did do that. He questioned whether Sharia law, which subjugates women and allows you to marry 6 and 9-year-olds, okay, it's bad. Again, I'm not going to get into a philosophical debate about whether Sharia law is bad or not. I'm going to accept it as a given in this case that it's bad. Okay, some things you just have to accept as a given. And it seems like many of you have accepted that Israel is just bad de facto. So I guess nobody's really better here at the worst. Tucker blames Israel as being reliant on America. He wants to strip citizenship from dual citizens. Now, full stop. Without the Israel question in play, I'm all for this. I'm just going to say that. Get rid of dual citizenship. You can't have it. Okay? Using Israel as the justification for it is maybe a bad look. I would say, the spread of Islam within the United States is probably a better reason, Now, this partnership that exists between Israel and the United States, Tucker Carlson ignores that Israel's military tech have been tremendous contributions. For example, the Iron Dome tech is shared with the U.S. We do manufacture the technology to keep it up, but the Golden Dome technology that Trump is planning to implement here to protect us against nuclear weapons is from Israel. Okay. I think it's a little bit of a selective outrage to focus on this partnership and this pairing that we have. I mean, why don't we have scrutiny of Saudi alliances or Qatari alliances? I mean, Tucker Carlson does have Qatar ties. He's had Doha Forum appearances, and it suggests influence from anti-Israel funders. So is the question that the United States is accepting money from a foreign allegiance? Because if that's the case, why is Tucker Carlson, supposedly accepting money from foreign people? Wouldn't that suggest that they're trying to buy his influence? And is Tucker Carlson just a bought and paid for mouthpiece of Qatari talking points, right? To play devil's advocate, Tucker's evolution reflects a war fatigue post-Gaza. Tucker Carlson was around on Fox News during the Iraq War, and give him credit and to be fair, he was kind of in a bad position where he was, asked to be like pro-war because it's against chemical weapons, it's against, radical Islam, and yet there were no chemical weapons there. The Iraq War of 2006 was a complete sham, founded on false pretenses, and it cost the U.S. millions of dollars and billions of dollars and thousands of lives. Okay. But to counterpoint, this stance that Tucker is taking veers into anti-Semitism by targeting Zionists as civilization's enemies while ignoring jihadist threats. Okay, this is something that Fuentes and Tucker Carlson are both doing. They're claiming that there's a cabal, or implying, in Tucker Carlson's case, they're implying this perception of wider influence over the American public from the Jews. But they're completely ignoring the subversive tactics that Islam uses. For example, they have the taqiyya, which is that they're allowed to lie to advance Islam. And I should also note that, unlike the Jews, Islam is expansionary. Their whole goal is to recruit by the sword. And if you look at the early days of Muhammad, I mean, he recruited people by the sword. Join Islam or die. Jews don't have that mentality baked into them. They just want to survive. You have to keep in mind the Jews come from a region that was invaded by the Romans, the Greeks, was invaded by the Ottomans. I mean, they are literally a minority. 15 million people. They've been bussed around and scooted all about, and the Arabs hate them. Probably to do with Sarah and Hagar, but I completely digress. I'm just saying, there are worse enemies that we would be better off focusing our attention to. And they are enemies that are more culturally dissonant with American values, and, I should add, Jewish values. At the very least, we should all be able to agree that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We both have enemies in Islam. Islam is not compatible with the West, not compatible with Catholicism, with Protestantism, with capitalism, with liberal values, classical liberal values. The Jewish nation is the only democracy that exists in the Middle East, and that should tell you something. We do align in our value structure. I would say that we even have more in common with Israel at this point than we do with the UK, than with France, than with Germany. I mean, they've completely subverted their own populations with Islamists, with people who are Muslim, not just Muslim, interested in spreading Islam to every corner of the world. Why aren't Tucker and Fuentes focused on that cabal? Because I guarantee you that cabal does exist. Moving on. If Tucker applied all of everything he says about Israel to Ukraine aid, it'd be America first. But here, it singles out Israel. Candace Owens is probably the least trustworthy or person. This is the person on the list of the three horsemen, as I call it, who has the least credible amount of information. She has consistently said she has inside sources. She's working on an investigation, hundreds of videos, hundreds of hours about Charlie Kirk and the Israel connection, and nothing has come of it. Owens calls Israel demonic, Zionists, psychopaths chosen by Satan. I mean, that sounds like something right out of an Islamic playbook. I mean, you really think the Jews are that? In Islam, if you're in an Islamic country and you have a 9-year-old daughter who is raped by a 30-year-old man, that culture and that society will demand that you not only put to death the rapist, but you put to death the victim out of shame. Okay? Let's just get something real quick here. That is the act of a psychopath chosen by Satan to inflict the ultimate amount of pain in this world. It is not the Jews. I want to remind everybody that Charlie Kirk was a staunch defender of Israel up until his death. He wrote letters to Netanyahu expressing his concern that Israel was losing a PR war that it desperately needed to win. And why is it not winning? It's because there's young white men like you watching this video who are disaffected. You're hungry, poor, broken. Your morale is beat. You've been raised by female teachers who demasculate you in front of everybody. You might have been raised in a single mother household. You have all of these issues. The person who needs to be blamed for that is no one else other than Satan. Satan has inflicted so much pain and torture on this nation, and Satan does that by turning people away from Christ. Christ is the truth, the way, and the way out of this. Blaming the Jews, and for that matter, blaming Islam for all of the problems in our lives is a complete lack of self-accountability and responsibility. Okay? Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, these professional complainers, are the epitome of people who you do not want to emulate your life around. Just because they're getting support for these crazy ideas doesn't mean, and that there's an audience base for acceptance in these ideas, doesn't mean that you need to take part in it. You can be a strong individual who takes accountability for his or her actions or beliefs. Okay, you don't have to be a hurt person who hurts other people. Whatever's going on in your life, it's not the Jews causing it. Okay, I can almost guarantee you that. If there is one country or group of people that you can attribute most of the world's problems to right now, it wouldn't even be one person. You can attribute it to the global conflict between the United States and the Western allies versus the new axis of evil, which is China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and all of their proxies. We are in the middle of a geopolitical conflict right now where everybody's kind of getting a little bit poorer, stressed, and worried about the prospect of war. And it's war that's caused by Thucydides' trap. It is a geometric alignment where a rising power meets a falling power. And as that cross on the vector platform happens, war breaks out. Life is about to get very difficult. It has been getting difficult. I understand, but it's not the Jews. Okay, the Jews are not the cabal that is running the world. There are other factions in this multipolar world who have way more power than the Jews do. Jews are a successful minority. Yes, they have some of the highest median incomes in the entire United States, maybe even the world. They're incredibly smart. They have big families. But that is in and of itself not bad. Smart people who are rich are not bad. It's poor, bitter people in large numbers who most of the time make things worse for everybody else. I'm just going to say. Going back to Candace Owens, the last horseman, she claims that there's a Holocaust going on in Gaza while minimizing the Nazi one. I mean, how much more hypocritical do you want to get? Attacking Judaism as evil and pushing Mossad conspiracy theories like Kirk was killed by it. She has offered zero evidence to suggest this. Okay? Her pre-2025 Zionism flipped post-firing from Daily Wire, blending blood libels with policy gripes. Again, you mix the legit criticism with a blood libel, right? Like, it's a difference between comparing a modern policy done by the current American administration versus saying that because America is a systemically racist country, a la, Black Lives Matter 2020, the whole system has to be completely done away with. Okay? Candace Owens calls Netanyahu's actions a Holocaust, ignores Hamas's role in civilian targeting stats. It's audience chasing. She mocks Palestinian suffering in old clips. Okay? To play devil's advocate, Gaza critiques are valid among high casualties. However, framing it as Jews hate Christians is religious bigotry, not analysis. If she said this about Islam, it'd be deplatformed as Islamophobia, arguably. Now, I want to get into a realpolitik case for U.S. support of Israel. Okay? From an American interest perspective, supporting Israel isn't charity. I'm going to tell you why. It's strategic investment in stability, tech, and countering threats like Iran, yielding mutual benefits in a multipolar world. Again, there's that word again, multipolar. Now, within reason, Israel and America, we have shared values, democracy, innovation. And that's not the extent of it. Pragmatically, it's about power projection. Okay, enemy, my enemy is my friend. Israel and the United States are ideologically not aligned, and they have enough goods and services to trade with one another in a mutually beneficial, symbiotic, free market capitalist way that it makes sense to hedge our bets against enemies who want to destroy us for who we are. I want to give you something to consider. You might be one of these people who just hates Israel and thinks they have to be wiped off the face of the earth, right? Okay, well, guess what? There are people who feel that way about the United States. Now, if you're America first, you don't want that to happen, right? Well, if you get into the devil's in the details as far as the strategy and the tactics that are needed to protect this nation, one of those includes forming allies with the right people. Okay, if it were up to me, I feel like we are more closely aligned with Israel than, say, Saudi Arabia, right? So as far as allies that we should keep in our back pocket, Israel is definitely one of the stronger ones, despite their small size. They are a choke point and a check. They are a finger on the scale of power within the Middle East against radical Islam, I might add. Okay. Israel shares real-time intel on ISIS, Hezbollah, and Iranian proxies, preventing attacks on U.S. soil and interests. For example, thwarting plots in Europe and America. Without this, U.S. ops in Syria, Iraq would weaken and would cost lives and money. That's taken from the Heritage Foundation, by the way. We have a military technological edge because of them. We have joint R&D projects with them, aero missiles, cyber tools, which bolster U.S. defenses. Israel tests experimental gear in real conflict, saving billions of U.S. and R&D. Allies like this deter foes. Think how Saudi normalization hinged on U.S.-Israel ties. You know, it's like the Saudi was like, okay, they're allied with Israel. I guess we don't really want to mess with them. We don't, and Israel's allied with the United States. Like, the bigger your team is, the better your team is, the less people will mess with you. If I walk down the street and I've got two skinny, 5'2", 130 pounds soaking wet guys on either side of me, and I go walk through a really bad part of Southern Chicago, Nick Fuentes, eat your heart out, I'm not going to feel very safe. And people are going to think, hey, these guys can get fucked with easy. All right. But if I'm walking around with a crew of like 5 or 6 guys, all 6'2", all at least 200 pounds, look pretty strong. Maybe I'm walking with the rugby team. No one's going to mess with you. Okay. That same scenario extrapolates out to the macro, whereby the United States is the big player on the block, and Israel is this like short, stocky, like triple black belt in like 3 different martial arts, and has, a knife in his boot and a concealed carry in his back pocket, right? You're walking down there. We're the big guy who could fuck you up, and Israel's the little guy that could fuck you up, okay? Everybody knows it too. There's a reputation in the streets. Like, no one's going to mess with that, because they also know that even if they do get the better of those 2 individuals, we can call them backup. We got NATO. We have Canada. We have the Five Eyes, Australia. Okay? Israel counters Iranian expansion. And by the way, the through line in that is counters Islamist terrorism expansion. Okay? Stabilizes oil routes, reducing U.S. intervention needs. Okay? Now, there is a counterpoint even to this. Again, I'm trying to give counterpoints. I know I'm not spending as much time on it, but hear me out. To completely counter everything I just said, we do give $3.8 billion in a year. It does strain budgets amid domestic issues. But again, that's only 0.6% of U.S. GDP, which is offset by economic returns. For example, $10 billion in arms sales, okay? I want to give you all a scenario. Cutting support with Israel risks a Middle East vacuum filled with China and Russia, hiking energy costs for the United States consumer and empowering anti-U.S. regimes. Bottom line, these narratives exploit frustrations but crumble under facts. Supporting Israel advances U.S. security. Okay? Now, what's your take on balancing critique with alliance? That's the question I want to leave for you.